Good hello. What can we see in the hands of a hypnotist, a mentalist, an illusionist? Well, this week we're looking at the hands of Derren Brown. I have here some pretty good images, really. I've got his left and right hands just here. I've got a really nice, clear image just here. So I'm going to be looking at his past, his deeper kind of more meaningful specifics about his own psychology and a couple of future events as well. Now, the first thing I see straight away is that he is an analytical hand type. If you want to know more about what I mean by that, it's one of the 12 hand types in palmistry that the late great David Brandon Jones wrote about. And you can check out what I mean by that on my website, on my blog. Have a look at the 12 type hand classification method and have a look at the analytical hand. Now, he is a fine comber of the details by his long fingers. The palm is only just rectangular. An air hand, someone who is um, loves a great debate, loves a great conversation, a documentary, an ideas person who's constantly moving from one idea to the next in search of, as shown by his fanned out fingers, information, new ideas, new concepts. He is outgoing when it suits him. And I say that because of the need for control seen by the basal phalanx of Jupiter. One of the things I noticed straight away is that he has a very low set thumb. It's a right angle, or is at least he's able to produce a right angle with this. Now, someone who can do this is open-minded by their very nature, and it's a sign of having a low set thumb like this, a book lover, as well as a humanitarian. And also what shows up as being very open-minded, being very sort of what you see is what you get, is this distance, the gap seen, the large space seen between the headline and the heart line. If he's not buried in a great conversation, he's buried in a book. I find it interesting that his Jupiter finger leans towards his thumb before veering away towards Apollo. Saturn and Jupiter lean towards Apollo, whereas Mercury stands very upright, very straight, very long. So Jupiter leaning towards the thumb here shows how his decision making, his ambition, his judgment, they are in part kind of related to his character. His ambition revolves around his own personality and charisma. When we see Jupiter at the tip leaning towards, um, leaning inwards, as well as Saturn, when they both do this, at least when it's very sort of sharply so, it implies that there were mixed messages when they were young. When you see it with just Jupiter, it implies um, being criticized heavily by parents or role models when they were young. And also, we see actually a very short Jupiter finger, which shocked me actually. I thought we would see a longer Jupiter finger. I thought we'd see more confidence than this, but notice how it doesn't actually reach past the halfway mark of the first phalanx of Saturn. It just about reaches, it's just underneath halfway. So really, we have an inferiority complex here. There's a wide basal phalanx of Jupiter as well. There's a strong need for control. And so whenever he achieves something, he moves that goalpost even further. I need to achieve this next new thing now in order to feel adequate. There's a constant sense of inadequacy. It's quite sad, really. Now, Saturn as well leans in towards Apollo at the tip here. And really, what this is showing us is a lot of the higher kind of Apollonian aspects, traits, values are inherently strong. So, reputation, glory, vanity, his legacy really means something. What he leaves behind, public opinion, public image, these really mean something to him. So, he's going to control this as much as he can. Now, he is a showman, and he is, has a tremendous stage presence. But the way that Mercury has such a great ability to separate itself from the rest of his psychological traits and what these represent shows a real need for independence, privacy. Um, when it comes to his private life, um, this is off stage. He's going to control really just how this is his own public opinion by really keeping himself to himself when he's not on stage. He's a non-conformist as well. But I think really what needs to be noted here is the sheer length of Mercury. It's almost as long as his Jupiter finger. Remarkably long. In fact, I've only ever seen this twice before, I think, this kind of thing. And I've measured it up in this image as well, just for a bit more accuracy, because it's never really a fair test doing it this way. It's never really an exact science, is it? Just because this finger could be sort of bent backwards a little bit, distorting our findings. But the sheer length here really shows us that capacity for all things mercurial. Now, the Greek equivalent to Mercury is Hermes, the messenger god, the lightning fast, um, quick thinking, cunning, deft of hand, adept thief. The the cunning, quick thinking, uh, communicator. All of these things are mercurial, and all of these things he has great capacity for, a greater capacity than most. So really, this helps in distraction, in deflection, in deceiving, essentially, which is what every illusionist does. It also aids him in his understanding because it's a greater capacity for learning, communication, in order um, to relay a message, we need to memorize. And essentially, without memory, learning is impossible. So this really enhances that ability to memorize to such a degree that it's certainly one of the signs of high IQ in palmistry, as is in conjunction with this a long headline, which he does have, and you can see it more clearly in this image here. It just about ends low down on Luna here. This is the clearest image I have of his hands. So as I say, he has a great need to control. I think just in general, there might well be some OCD here, and I have seen as well some flexibility, a bit more flexibility in the tip of the Saturn finger than any other finger. Now, when this finger has the capability for flexing upwards, away from the palm, it shows a deep interest in the supernatural. But interestingly, this, and it's not sharply so, there is some sort of developed um, feelings of and leaning towards his own nature and immorality about his own nature, shame and guilt about his own nature. This creates a deep-rooted sense of anxiety and a feeling of lacking of safety. Now, this is really interesting. Check this out. I've noticed this just before I started filming for this reading. Look at the Saturn finger just here and the square, clearly marked square seen on the tip of the Saturn finger here. Now, this really shows a leaning towards this immorality that I'm talking about, and it's developed. I don't really know what this is exactly, but he is in some way protected from this. He's never going to go to the extremes. He's somehow able to avoid any kind of harm when it comes to exploring this nature, this part of himself. But he does not feel safe. And this, again, might be why we see the need to isolate himself from society. This great need for kind of privacy in his own sort of personal private life. He has no desire for attention when he is off stage. As I say, he's happy to present himself to the world on his own terms. The tip of Mercury is somewhat kind of pointed, and this really shows that exceptional kind of sharpened tongue. So too is his mind and wit, his ability to retort quickly in conversation. He is um, he has mastered the art, likely, of speechcraft. He is as quick with his words as his mind. Communication is and part of expression as well. Expression is the way we uh, carry ourselves. Our creative abilities is as part of that, as much as that. And he is a highly creative individual. Now, I say that because part of, I mentioned before the fingers leaning towards Apollo, these Apollonian traits, the values here are quite strong. Um, and being creative, this need for creative expression is strong within as well. And that's also noted by this dramatically, because there is quite a dramatic flair about him. Makes sense. He's a showman. He has a real sense of creativity, an ability to say what if. And this is combined with his sort of deep need to explore new concepts and ideas as well. But I also think he is um, a real artistic creative as well. Anyone with the ability to captivate an audience, to hypnotize and engage people en masse, will have a well-developed amount of Neptune, and that is in between Venus and Luna, in between Hollow, Luna, and Venus. So it's really just the center of the palm down here, right at the base above the wrist lines. Now, most people will have a mount of Venus which separates itself from the rest of the mounts in that you can quite clearly see its definition. But because Derren has such a well-developed mount of Neptune, it almost looks as though Venus, Luna, and Neptune are all leveled off. They're all at the same height. This allows him to convey, carry his persona, his charisma, personality across by using this kind of bridge of this Mount of Neptune out into the wider world afar. Now, anyone who has this kind of well-developed Mount of Neptune is incredibly gifted when it comes to holding an audience and has that ability um, to learn how to hypnotize others. They have a great understanding of their audience. Derren Brown is a professional hypnotist as well as being a master of understanding his audience. He has, I believe, he has a degree in psychology. Now, it's pretty blurry, but I'm going to be looking at his life here. I'm just going to look back a little bit at his life. Now, I can see here there are two very powerful moments of anger here attached to a very difficult part of his life, which starts around early teens right up to early adulthood. And I believe here this is attached to family. This is anger. This is more frustration and anger than it is hurt. Um, and it's around a family dispute of some sort. Maybe parents didn't agree with something. And then when I look at this other image of his hand here, notice the family ring just down here. It's not well formed. It's almost like a massive island, but even that's not well formed. It's very unfortunate because there's seems to be some sort of dysfunctionality about the domestic sphere, about family at least. So I think there is some healing here. There are some scars. But check it out. After this time, I mean, notice how this is the left hand that I've just shown you here, and so these were very internal issues here. The left hand shows us what's internal. The right hand shows us the external. So when we look at the right hand just here, we don't see nearly those same things. This did not in this event that I've spoken about, where these two feelings of anger are involved. It did not impact him externally, environmentally, practically. This was a very internal thing. Now, at roughly the age of 25 here, we can see through a great sense of drive and motivation, there is an achievement made towards career, towards um, his his feeling around his purpose in life. You can also see a triangle here on the Saturn mount. This is an aptitude for learning the occult arts. It's his study. It's his fortune through study of the occult and mystic arts. And this um, moment of uh, achievement is actually aimed directly at this area. It's rising upwards, up towards, Saturn, place of time, inevitable planning, duty, societal contribution, career. It's as though at this time in his life he made some sort of achievement, some sort of um, rise in his career towards a new level of status. We're looking at the right hand, so this is potentially some sort of um, elevation in his career. Now, the lifeline is very straight. You don't get the same sense of just how straight this lifeline is in this image, but when you look at it in this image here, you can really see just how straight it is. And a person with a straight lifeline generally always moves away from um, their place of birth. They are always on the move. They're bold and ambitious. They are looking to make great change. This is also noted by the distinctive width of the base of his hand. He is keen to uh, read the rule book and then make changes to it. He is a pioneer. He is an advocate for great change. He wants to make an impact on the world and leave a legacy. Now, we've even got his fingerprint pattern on Apollo. And this is the eye of the peacock. He is a show off, undoubtedly. He's a showman. He has great skills and talents on stage, not necessarily acting, but his presence, his persona, and his ability to utilize his talents and skills on stage with his vast ability to learn and also deceive. Now, looking a little bit ahead for Derren Brown, because he is actually 53, but looking at his lifeline, I would say that in the not too distant future for him at all, probably around about the age of maybe anywhere between now in his life, actually, under the age of 55, there is a crossroads decision about to occur. He's going to feel pulled in two directions, one by um, family, something related to family, maybe parents, and his career. And he's going to have to make a choice. This will likely be some sort of unforeseeable event, and he'll probably have to choose where he lives, or at least choose where he invests his time and energy and effort. He's going to have to make a choice here, and he'll be at a crossroads. And as I say, this might actually be now for him, but if not in the very near future. And then at about the age of, I'd say another 10 years from then, so maybe 65, there will be some intestinal or digestive health issues that crop up. I can see here his Mercury line, his health line, he's in great shape, but there is something around the corner for him in terms of some kind of digestional health issue. But the one thing that I noticed in his hands, which do give me something of concern, is his headline, because whilst he's incredibly creative, it actually droops a little bit too low down. Not so much in this image, but then lines change all the time. Because I've noticed in these images here, which are actually taken from this here, I've just swapped his hands around. So we've got his right hand here, the external, and the left hand, the internal right here. Now, look at the headlines. This I find really interesting. The headline on the right hand is, and I can appreciate you can't really quite see all that well, it's actually higher than on the left hand. The left hand headline groups very low down, low into lunar. This is unsettling because it's a sign of depression. And there's certainly a feeling here of um, his mental headspace. He probably suffers from poor mental health, and he's probably continually searching for answers as to how to cope and understand why he's feeling the way he's feeling and thinking. And he probably even may well feel he struggles to understand his place in the world and his purpose in the world. Now, when we cannot have children, or we choose not to have children, or our life circumstances make it not possible or probable. Um, we can feel a little bit like, what's the point? What am I doing here? If I can't procreate, I'm not. That's my purpose here, after all, right? All I can really do is leave behind a legacy. I can immortalize myself by becoming famous and making great works, changing the world, or at least the way people see the world or each other. Or I can write a book. That's essentially all I can really do. I can do all I can to leave behind a legacy, a reputation, and that way I've left my mark on the world, and it's given me purpose. And in some way, I wonder if Derren Brown sought to achieve all that he has in order to alleviate himself from these powerful feelings of depression. And it's really common to see with people who are incredibly intelligent. Depression is always heightened, increased in the hands of those who are intelligent, because the more aware we are, the more sensitive we are, the more prone we are to poor mental health and suffering. All the signs here point towards someone who has a great need to understand, to learn, to explore, to change the way that others think and see um, people and the world around them in order to understand the self better. I find it interesting because Derren Brown, on one of his episodes, and I've watched a lot of his work, he talked about palmistry and he kind of lumped it in with the Barnum effect and dismissed it as fraudulent practice. Now, I've got nothing against Derren Brown. In fact, I have nothing but admiration for him. And I know, and I can see here from his hands, he's highly open-minded. So I wonder if one day he will somehow come around to the idea of the validity of palmistry and the true power of greater self-understanding and just how that can empower us. I've just realized I'm tiny. I'm over here in the corner. Got all this space. So I do hope you've enjoyed this reading. I was going to read the hands of David Copperfield this week because of someone's suggestion. Don't feel as though I'm reading all of your comments. I might take a while to get back to people, but I do read them all, and I will. That's my hope, to get back to everyone in the end. I did want to read Derren Brown because I've had this mentioned a few times, and I've been really wanting to read his hands for ages. So do let me know who you'd like me to read the hands of next week. Please do feel free to ask me any questions at all about your own hands. Feel free to book a reading with me. Thank you very much for watching. Please do subscribe, like, and comment. It all helps the algorithm and get my videos out there. And I will see you on the next one.